Hi, I'm Rob, and thanks for discovering season 1 of Two Bye Guys. We hope you enjoy it. So, in season 1, we recorded everything in person. It was pre pandemic, and we used professional sound booths. And as you'll hear, the audio quality is pretty great, but it was also very complicated and expensive. And when the pandemic hit, those booths became impossible. So, in season 2, we tried recording interviews locally while chatting on Zoom, which kind of worked, but the audio quality was spotty. Sometimes people made manual mistakes with the recording. It was a huge hassle for me to receive the files, convert the formats, compile the audio, edit by hand. I knew I needed a better solution if I was going to continue the podcast. And Zencaster was that solution. The thing that was most important to me, knowing how the process works, is that the audio gets recorded locally, not over the internet like Zoom does. When you get up to seasons 3 and 4, you'll hear how good the audio quality is. It rivals what you're about to hear from season 1, which was recorded in professional sound booths. And it's so much easier and cheaper. Everyone can record from home with whatever equipment they have, even just a laptop's built-in mic. And then there's the editing and post-production. I used to have to go through every track manually, reducing background noise, mixing volumes and levels, making sure my guest and I were synced. Now, Zencaster post-production takes care of all of that and delivers ready to upload files. So if you're thinking about starting your own podcast, I highly recommend Zencaster. It's easy, it's affordable, and it's very reliable, and the sound quality is great. And now if you go to zencaster.com/pricing and enter promo code 2BYGUYS, you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. That's ZENCASTR.com/pricing, promo code 2BYGUYS for 30% off your first 3 months. It's time to share your story with Zencaster. How do you prepare for a shoot? Do a little breathing exercise?
Yeah, similar like mental goose frabas, if you will.
I just start taking off my clothes and.
Okay, let's try that.
It's a meditation.
Hello, and welcome to Two Bye Guys. I am here by myself today in Los Angeles, just one bye guy, but here with two more, so we have three. I'm here with Dante, Colle, and Michael DelRay, who are two models, adult performers, content creators living in Los Angeles, pushing the boundaries of fluid representation in the porn industry. And I'm very excited to have them here. Welcome, Dante and Michael.
Thank you.
Glad to be here.
Indeed.
So yeah, this actually came about from that Slut Ever show that we were in. Alex and I were in that show, and Dante appeared in the first section about bisexuality in the porn industry. And then Dante connected us to Michael. And so let's start by, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Anything else I left out? And also, what are your pronouns and how do you identify on any spectrums you'd like to identify on?
Okay, yeah. I'm Michael DelRay. Him is perfectly fine, but I identify as like pansexual.
Cool.
I think bi is like an overarching umbrella. Bi is like the more easy layman's terms way for people to understand exactly what I do identify as, but pansexual would be more accurate to like how I identify.
I am Dante Colle. He, him is what I use, I guess. I've actually never had to mention that,
Yeah,
so it's going to be interesting.
Standardize that question.
There we go.
Yeah.
Popping my cherry. But as far as my sexuality goes, in general, I try not to use like titles. It's not like I'm like against the use of titles, like, gay, straight, bi, pan, whatever. It's just easier for me just to be like, I prefer women, but that to some people would mean bi or pan, because then I'm also interested in men to whatever extent at that specific moment.
Jury's
Okay.
out. But mostly women.
But both of you are sort of fluid. Like,
Oh, yeah.
talk a little more about what pansexual means to you and how you sort of came to these identities.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely knew I was not 100% straight pretty. I mean, I wouldn't say early on. I think some people know it like 5 and 6. I was definitely more in like, I think I was probably like 16 and I realized my varsity football captain I didn't just admire. And I ended up fucking around with this like the one openly gay kid in high school. I mean, I feel like my mom kind of should have put it together when I was like getting workout Barbies and stuff and like 5 years old. My first CD was Britney Spears. Like, you'd think you'd put a thing or two together, but I'm also from Wisconsin, so it's not like super open to that. But So anyways, I kind of progressed and I thought, I used to say, heteroflexible, because I did think I was more hetero. And then I really just got more opportunities to explore like the gay side of me, if you will. And then I started to be like, well, hold on, what the fuck here? Because this definitely is not holding to one side or the other. And it's like bouncing back and forth depending on the week, depending on how hot the guys I'm fucking, depending on how hot the girls I'm fucking. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It comes and goes. You have a good experience with pussy. You want to go for seconds. Sometimes you have a bad one. You're like, let's switch it up a bit.
I know exactly what you mean.
Okay. But yeah, and then I kind of like fell in love with this girl, and she's trans, and I realized that it all kind of really did not come down to sexual organs or sexual identity or like gender identity. For me, it was more about just like hot is hot.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, oh, so it's about like their emotions. I'm like, no, I have standards. I give a fuck about your emotions. I care if you're hot. Yeah. But I just realized that that didn't necessarily correlate with like gender at all.
You can find people attractive of any gender.
Yeah.
And do you use pan as opposed to bi?
Well, I pretty openly say pansexual, but like when I'm in bi porn, like they'll always list it as bi. I'm not going to like go out of my way to be like, no, I'm not bi, because I kind of am bi. Like,
right. I think it's just like everyone's opinion on the term bi at that point.
For sure.
And how about you? How did you come to this identity, and like when did you realize you were fluid sexually?
So pretty much my whole life, I never had any sort of trigger or thing where I was like, maybe I am interested in guys. And then I was 18 years old on my first porn scene, and it was with a guy. Yeah. And I had never even kissed a guy before, and then so I just jumped right into the scene, like, fuck it. And then I was like, that's not so bad. And so it just kind of everything. Mind you, I'm 25 now, so over the course of 7 years, that's, evolved quite a bit. And so now I'm just like a lot more comfortable with who I am, and just like allowing myself to be like interested in what I want to be interested in. And I relate a lot with Michael, because it's like, for me right now, guys are more of like sexual interests. I've never had a romantic interest in a sense, but that's not to say that can't happen. I'm just like, it just hasn't come around yet.
Right. I think I identify with that a lot, because for me it started very much as a sexual attraction to men. But then as I opened myself up, then I started to realize, well, maybe something emotional is possible too. Mm-hmm. And it sort of happened very slowly once you open yourself up.
Right.
So the porn triggered you realizing that you might be not straight.
Yeah, basically. It was never one of those things where I grew up when I was just like, oh, I'm straight, like, meh, like all that kind of stuff. But but it was just never a thing to me. It was never something I considered. I was just like, yeah, I'm straight. I never had a reason to second guess that until that moment, obviously.
Was it easy to make that transition after your first shoot? Like, how quickly did you become comfortable or come to realize that?
I stayed pretty like down low on everything for a couple of years, because I went into the military. I had got like a couple scenes out of the way, and then for the next like 2 years plus, I was in the military, and then so I didn't really do anything then. And so then after I got out, I went back to that same studio and started exploring a little bit more. And then it was just about after that where I really started to like open up and like really become who I am and allow myself to be who I am.
Cool. So Dante, you were in the Navy. Was there sex between straight identified men going on there, and how did that play out?
I didn't see a whole lot of that going on, but like you heard that it did happen. Like that shit did go on. And so there's two big things that I've seen. And one of them is like when you're like in a special forces program, like you get some of these badass fucking dudes that are just like, they will straight up tell you like, yeah, I fuck dudes. What are you going to do about it? Like, they just are so badass that they just don't care what anyone thinks. And then you have the other dudes who are, like, in these badass roles that are like, yeah, I like to have sex with dudes sometimes because there's nothing more masculine than dominating another guy.
Yep.
And now it's like, well, like, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I feel like in a lot of cases that is just a way to mask what's really going on. Yeah, so those are your kind of like your two ways. But like I said, like, you could be totally straight and you could just get off on the fact of dominating a guy, but more than likely there's something else there.
Interesting. And how about you, Michael?
I'm just picturing him in the military being bi.
That's, kind of hot.
Just thinking.
But when did you get into porn, and did you realize things about your sexuality because of that? Was it tied in also or separate?
Like a little bit. Like my story's a little similar. I was like 19, I think, my first porno, but I also really, really biffed that one. I mean, in my defense, I did have this PA who totally fucked with me and taught me how to douche wrong. So I'm like, yeah, it wasn't cute, but it was also fucking hilarious in hindsight, and I laugh about it with the guy all the time now. But so there was like a year gap in there. But anyway, so let's say I started like 19, 20. Like I had fooled around with guys at that point, not much. But enough to know, like, I was into it a little bit. So I didn't know how much, and a part of me just wondered if it was just me being, like, a real curious dude. Like, I've always been, like, curiosity kills the cat. Like, if I was a cat, shit died a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I was always just a crazy kid getting into all sorts of mischief. So I'm like, I was already kind of in it, and then I think porn was just, it became, like, an outlet. I think it was just like, okay, now not only can you be comfortable and open, or as open as you feel comfortable with in Wisconsin, also here's this whole new world you can gallivant in and explore your sexuality on this side. I'm like, oh, well, shit. Like, how cool is that?
Yeah. So it was like a benefit when you sort of got in there. Like,
well, I mean, I do think that I would have repressed a lot of like who I was and like the gay sides of my sexuality, but I don't think I ever would have like completely been ignorant or like totally ignored it. It might not have come out as fast, or maybe not at all. I just would have repressed it long enough.
Yeah.
Who knows? But porn was really more of like an opportunity or an outlet to explore that. And I definitely pushed me into it a little bit too. I mean, it was a fast ride, but
I agree with that.
Kind of didn't get a choice. All those little like pieces that are like, well, are you sure you want to do this? You're like, yeah, I'm here doing this. So
yeah, I identify so much with what you're saying about being curious and being that type of person. And I think a lot of people who are fluid sexually have that in common. Do you think that like your openness to experience and your curiosity about that stuff helped you get into the porn industry? And like, because there's a stigma about that, and there's stigma about sexuality. Like, are those things related?
Yeah.
Can you fight that stigma in similar ways?
Like because we have the balls to come out and be who we are, is that maybe the same balls?
Yeah.
That, like,
I would say so,
Exactly. Good way to put it.
I think so as well.
It was never a struggle for me as far as being like a porn performer. It was one of those things that like I just immediately accepted who I was. Or no, not, I'm sorry, totally false. Up until a couple of years ago, I got into this like fuck it attitude, and then I was just like, this is who I am, and if you don't accept that, then then I'm not gonna like surround myself around you. So I was just like, it was just never like really a concern for me. So like sexuality kind of followed in suit.
So yes, we were born this way.
Amazing. So what is it like to be bi in the porn industry? Let's set the stage a little. Like, what kinds of porn do you actually do? What studios do you work with? Do you do like gay porn, straight porn, bi porn, trans?
We've all done all of it.
Yeah,
all of that?
We do everything.
Sky's
Gay, straight,
the limit.
bi, trans,
Yeah.
kink.
And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean we're like shooting with any and all studios. We still have like our standards of who we work with and how we want to present ourselves. But indeed, like there's no sexuality limits with how we shoot porn.
So do you feel that's like a benefit to you because you have more options?
Yes, absolutely.
If you kind of like take a look at it, him and I can work, if we're talking like at a high average, up to 15 times a month. Whereas like someone, let's say who just strictly does gay, a high average would be like 4.
And then split that in half. Someone who strictly does gay and only bottoms. Now you're down to 2. 1, if that. And because of the lack of your flexibility, they might not even hire you back anyway. So that might dwindle to nothing.
Are there more porn performers becoming more versatile, like following your lead, or or are you guys sort of rare?
Yes.
I still think our group is rare, though.
We have a tight group still.
Because you have to remember, like, these directors, they just won't book them if they can't get their dick hard, if they can't perform in that bi setting, which means they kind of have to be into it a little bit.
Try to like when you and I first started, like the whole like branching out kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Think of all the names who were in that industry who are doing what we did, and then right now, think of all the names who do it now. Like, there's so much more.
Yeah, I guess, because the people, they didn't really cycle out. They're still there. So, yeah, I guess I've always been a little cynical of that because, there's so much shit we get. You know, it's
Oh,
funny.
yeah.
He asks, like, is it an edge? Is it a good thing? And hell yeah, it's a good thing for the work. But we do also get probably the most flack in the industry.
Yeah,
too.
it's so funny. Like, it's the gay and straight side kind of are like, they're not friends,
Yeah, we're
but
like
they're
the
not like
bastard
enemies.
children
They
of
don't
each.
they just don't talk to each other. You know, they're just like they don't associate with each other. But like us, both sides
doing
talk
both.
shit about us.
Oh,
Yeah. Like the shit talking's there anyways, but because we're in all sides, we get the heaviest like amount of.
Because it's just like being on both sides. Both sides think we're tainting either side.
Oh.
Well, and usually it comes down to like the directors having an issue with the director on the straight side, or someone having shit to
Yeah.
talk. You know, directors will go two different routes, and you know, then that industry becomes segregated. But I don't really see any logic behind the segregation.
It's like for the gay side, we get hate because then it's just like, oh, you're not fully gay, so you're fucking up the whole gay industry. You're like, you're what's wrong with the gay industry? And it's just like, well, we're just doing this. But then it's like on the straight side, it becomes this thing of like, oh, you're gross for doing that, and you're bringing diseases over to the straight side, which is really fucking funny because the past 3 moratoriums, a moratorium is when the whole legally the whole porn industry shuts down when someone catches HIV.
Oh.
And the past
They
3
put everybody
times, the
on
past
lock.
3 years, it's all been on the straight side.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Every fucking time.
Right.
And
that
it's really
stigma's
funny
false.
because if we're so dirty, then how come we're coming up on the same exact pass system? You know what I mean?
And we have safer
but to them,
test regulations,
they truly
too.
believe in their truest of true hearts that a straight male who comes in with 7 days left of his 14-day test is less likely to bring something around the industry than someone who's also on 7 days left of a 14-day industry but is gay. Or like it's absolutely asinine.
And it's a very, 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 very rare to ever do day before testing on the straight side, but it's very regular to do day before testing on the gay side.
And week before, day before. So if you don't already have your pass within the 14 days, then you have to do it within 7 days and a day before. If you're already within the 14 days when they book you, you at least have to do the 1 day before in addition.
So it's actually more regulated on the gay side, and yet the stigma still exists that it's less safe.
Yeah.
I am certain
hire gay
with the
performers.
amount we fuck, if we were not in porn, we would have significantly more STDs than we've had.
Yeah.
Or at least I can say that for myself. I don't want to speak
Oh,
for you.
totally.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
it's just, and it comes to the point where it's just like, regardless of, you know, straight, gay, whatever. I feel like porn performers are very like safe, like, and then they a lot of time are afraid to just have sex with anyone that's not in the industry because it's just like
that's what it comes
getting
down
tested.
to. Yeah, they won't even fuck outs. I don't really.
Yeah,
for that very
me
reason.
neither.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Well,
I
you're
never
not worth
thought
my
of that.
money. My 6 scenes booked up over the span of the next 10 days? Fuck no. Absolutely not. I'm not taking that risk on you. I'm not taking that gamble.
Someone who performs like us, we're having sex with 10 different people a month. And so the risk is going to be higher, but if you're talking about the ratio, we're a hell of a lot safer. The one thing I do want to like make sure to everyone, it's not all like gloom and doom and shit like that. Like kind of how
there's
we're
a
making
place
this
for
up.
everybody.
Like everything is progressing very quickly and in the right direction. I feel like so like
Agreed.
it's happening. Like there's the stuff that goes on, but it's like it's getting a lot better like quickly.
Yeah, it does seem like it's changing fast.
It does. Well, it's because there's a market for it now. People can capitalize off of it. It's not because there's any like social justice there.
Yeah.
It's because, oh, well, now we can make money off of 2 dudes fucking and a girl being in it.
And you got all the post-millennial kids that are just like, this is what they're about, this is their life.
Right.
So it's like, well, shit, we gotta market to them now.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, rats.
Yep.
Can't throw away that money or someone else will take it. Like,
Cool. Capitalism bringing us more representation.
yeah, exactly.
In this case, it's a good thing.
Right.
Cool. So what is that actually like to be having sex that much? Like, does it feel like you're acting and like it's a job? Do you get enjoyment out of it when you're doing it a lot? Is it very stressful? How does
Everyone's
it affect you
different.
personally?
I find it easier, or I find it myself. I'm not saying this is the right or wrong way to do it, but this is what works for me, is to always take it professionally, treat it like a job, but at the same time, allow yourself to have fun. But don't get lost in having fun to where all of a sudden you're just focusing on having fun. Realize that you're putting out a product, a piece of art, some may say.
Mm-hmm.
And so if all of a sudden you're just focusing on having fun, then all of a sudden it may not be looking good.
I agree with the same logic. I don't know if I always follow the same logic, but no, I think the same thing. Like when I showed up, like on my first porn scenes, I wasn't there as a model or an actor or a porn star or any of the things. I showed up as a businessman coming to do a business transaction, and I think a lot of people, that's like their real issue with people who swing to both sides of the industry is because they see it as, well, you're cheapening the porn if it's a transactional to you. But it's like, fuck, no, it's not really how that works. But I think, I always try to come in with the professional piece, and then I try to enjoy it if I can. But even if it's my perfect type, like visually, I can objectively say that's what I'm always into. If I'm fucking during porn, I'm usually just not into it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Does being in the industry affect your personal relationships? Like, are you dating outside of this, or because you are not, don't want to have sex outside it, is it hard to do?
You want to start with this one?
Yeah. It definitely, in many ways, affects outside relationships, because it's like, regardless of who you're talking to, there will always be some level of jealousy, like on both sides, So then it's just kind of like, if you're dating outside of the industry, then you have to deal with the fact that the person may not understand. Like, mind you, this is all understandable stuff. Like,
right.
You got to imagine being in their shoes, but then it's just like, there's always that element there. And dating within the industry, there's still jealousy that you're having sex with all these other people. Like, at the end of the day, just because
really
we're
change.
Performers, we're not like all of a sudden different people. We just are more exposed to sexuality. But it is a lot easier. But then again, people that you might be dating in the industry, kind of like on the crazy side.
A little nuts.
But it does affect like the way you treat your sex life. I think kind of was a lot of the question.
Yeah.
Because it changes for everyone. For me now, like sex in my personal life, I get off on the connection and the romance and then like the actual thing. But then like, for some people, some people it takes them to like darker place. Not saying that this is you, but I'm saying,
yes, you are. But that's
no.
It does.
I was thinking like way dark. Like people have to do some very very extreme things in order.
Know the porn I watch.
The porn you watch and the sex you have are two different things.
All right, touche. That's true. It's all coming from the same like demon. I'm still chasing the same dragon. It's just switched forms now.
Do you get jealous if you're dating someone in the industry? Like, do you get jealous when they're filming other scenes with other people?
Oh, yes.
A little bit.
Huh.
It just depends on the confidence you have in each other.
It could also be really healthy, but it's just like a magnifying glass on something. It's like, whoa, this could get really nuts or really awesome. We've seen some porn relationships that are like some of the most beautiful things we've ever seen. How long lasting, I haven't a clue. But either way, it's just significantly more intense.
Yeah. I liked what you were saying about how doing the porn can make you want to do more extreme stuff, because I think that happens to most people who watch porn, is that they watch it and it affects what they're attracted to and get off on. And then some people want to recreate that. Like, that's how they learn new things.
I hate to admit it. And it's just one of those things that, like, I feel like as it's our duty to, like, say it, like, porn sex is not something that you should influence your sex life off of. It is very unrealistic. It's just like watching movies and TV shows and looking at magazines. Like, people don't look like that normally.
We don't even do this shit in our real life.
Like, half of the stuff that we do is just, like, it's very uncomfortable, like, because we have to do these wacky weird positions. So it's just like, don't base your sex life off watching porn. It's just, I mean, maybe you get an idea here and there, sure, but like other than that,
now, granted, we do understand that orifices getting slammed from weird angles and shit like that is super dope.
Yeah,
we're about it. We're just saying, but can't always do like double backflip pile driver, for 45 minutes straight. I made that one up, but you know what I mean.
So what are the different types of bi porn that are out there? Like, I've seen, there's the more forced, pressured, like, you're doing this to please the woman. But then there's like, everyone's into it and it's hot.
I think our heads just jump to like, what are the sexual acts of bi porn? And that with bi porn, it's always the same.
Talk about that too.
Well, it's just that in order for it to be bi porn, if the two guys are just fucking the girl, but like making some real intense eye contact and like winking at each other, that's not enough. There has to be actual insertion, like penetration, I think, in order for it to be actual bi porn.
I think at least some dick sucking.
At least some dick sucking. And that's like lightly bi.
Yeah.
That's like, you're still not going to tell your dad kind of bi.
That's like cuck.
Yeah.
What's cuck?
Cuck is basically where we're going to paint out a situation because it's easier to explain that way. So Let's say a man and a wife. Let's say the husband gets off on watching the wife have sex with another man.
He gets off to the humiliation of it.
It's humiliation.
Yeah. It's a form of BDSM or kink.
The wife making the husband suck another man's dick, even though he may not be interested in sucking dick whatsoever. That is part of it.
It's that she's getting fucked by somebody else right in front of him and doing it on purpose to shame him and humiliate him. Be like, oh yeah, you can't even fuck your wife's pussy this good.
And who is
He's like, oh no, please, I wish I could do it. Oh, this is the worst. But somehow he's getting hard to it from like the shame. And this is cuckolding.
So I have two questions: are the performers, the male performers who do that, are they bi or straight, or who's getting hired for that? Is it like a bi
I've done
performer?
it, but like most of the time it's just a straight performer.
Oh,
It's just
really?
they're just acting.
So it's a
That's
straight
just
guy
because
who's
that
willing
cuckold
to.
work is more on the straight side, though. If that was like more indicative of gay porn, it would just all be on the gay side.
Yeah.
And who do you think is watching that kind of porn? Straight guys?
I don't know. I've been going down some different paths lately.
yeah,
so
I
I might be watching that.
I mean, I
sometime
think it's
soon.
kind of open for everyone. And it's just kind of like no matter what your sexual orientation is, if you may be able to get off
Yeah,
on
because I don't
that.
necessarily think it identifies with sexual orientation. I think it has more to do with the dominant submissive role, and that doesn't. That's kind of genderless
Interesting.
or orientationless.
Actually, the first thing that opened me up to even starting to question my sexuality was porn. And before I ever was willing to do anything with a guy, I found myself clicking on gay porn and watching it. And I was particularly interested in like gay for pay or like hazing porn. And so it's like, in a way, sort of about the fact that it isn't, you're not supposed to, or like the fact that it's kind of
forcing
coerced.
someone into a submissive position.
Yeah,
in
it's a
order
power
for that
dynamic.
the power. Yeah, sure.
Right. And it,
Oh,
to
yeah.
me, when I first started watching that, it didn't seem gay to me because the performers would say, I'm straight. I'm only doing this for the money.
Yeah.
And so
That was
if,
hot to
I was
you.
like,
You're
if they're
like, yeah, you
straight,
are.
then I can
Bend
watch
it
this and
over.
still be straight. Yeah.
I feel
So
you.
that was really hot.
Me too.
What's the gay for pay hazing kind of scene like? Have you guys done porn like that? Who's doing that kind of porn?
Every once in a while, does like the convincing your friend or your bro to do
Mm-hmm.
it. I guess everyone kind of does that. I've just done the most scenes like that at Next Door, but I guess kind of everyone did that phase for a while.
Oh, yeah?
But as for like the actual like, what's it gonna take for us to fuck that boy hole? Like, for that sounds like a lot more on like the kink side because again, it's not about as much about sexuality. It's more about the dom sub. So you'd find that more on like fetish sites, which typically aren't as mainstream unless it is kink.com and.
Or it's usually like those sites like Nextdoor that when they first hire a guy who's never done porn before to do like a gay scene, they may do like their first scene will be something along those lines. But anything can be considered gay for pay in the aspect of like, for example, some people consider me gay for pay. It's just their opinion. But then it could be anything just from a straight guy that does gay porn, but in the scene could totally be acting like he is a gay man. But it's just gay for pay. It's just a guy who is straight in their real life.
Right.
Is doing
So there's the reality of it, and
Yeah.
then there's how they're acting in the
Yeah.
scene. So it could be that, or it could be a gay guy pretending to be straight for the gay for pay, theoretically.
Oh, fuck
theoretically.
yeah.
Yeah. Are there a lot of straight guys who end up doing gay porn? Like
lot.
how
Fuck
common is it for those actors to do that?
25% of the
Oh, wow.
If not
town,
more.
if not
Wow.
more. Yeah,
and
25
why
to
do they
40.
do it? Why do
But
they do it to get
hold
more
on,
work?
now are they straight models or are they fluid models?
Exactly, good
'Cause
question.
That makes a big difference.
Right, what do you
And
think?
I would say maybe 10% are. Even those 10%, those boys are not fucking straight.
But it's like
they don't know how to suck dick, but they're not straight.
Let's just say that's what they call themselves. They call
Yes,
themselves
I would
straight,
say there's
whether
like
they are or not.
10% that really hardcore identifies as straight. The rest of that 30 to 40% of talent that isn't actively 100% gay or more leaning towards that side, I would say is just fluid.
Yeah.
So it's like in gay porn, people that are specifically gay, I think, make like the biggest piece. But your next biggest piece is definitely the fluid people, opposed to like people that are actually say they're straight.
I think the industry and what you're talking about highlights how much of a spectrum this is and how much fluidity there is among those labels. And so people have their labels, but there's a lot of behavior going on that might defy the strict definition of what that label is.
Yeah, we're trying to bring those walls down, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we're chipping away slowly but surely.
Do
Yeah,
you-
I would say so.
Good question, actually. Do you have like a social mission with this? Do you want to be more visible as
little bit,
yes.
bisexual?
Yeah, I mean it's also a business position as well. Like, but sure, yeah. In addition, social, like, and we go out of our way to do that too. I think we stirred up a little in Santa Monica.
Oh my God, yeah.
We made
What's that?
we made a little video of all these like religious anti-gay protesters on Santa Monica Pier, and Dante was like, "Let's go in and like actually try to talk to him first." And he's like, what can we do to repent? Or like, what
we're fucking with them. Right?
Yeah, it's like, what can we do to give back? We're gay porn stars here.
Like, how do we come back from this?
Yeah, right. How do we let Jesus Christ into our heart? Oh, maybe that's fucked up to say online. I don't know.
So I forget what we were saying.
But anyways, so he was like, you can't. The guy, he was like, you can't. Sorry, you're too far gone.
Don't know what to tell you, man.
He literally said that. He was like, what? He's like, well, what should we do? I was like, I think we should start making out. So he did.
And so mind you, there's like hundreds of people around us. We got a friend recording us, and we start making out and like tearing our shirts off, and
yeah.
That's hot. Good for you.
So yeah, like,
awesome.
We're here for a social stance too, but it's also our stance, you know.
I mean, it's specifically more as of recently, I've kind of made it a goal of mine to like start bridging the gap between gay and straight porn, because like I'm really, really pushing to start doing straight porn, because it's really, really hard for we're called crossover performers. It's really hard to get straight scenes.
Yeah.
Because of all the stigmas, but it's my goal right now, just to start getting straight scenes and being like, this can be a thing. There is nothing to fear. Why are we like this?
And also there's a huge part of it, and I can literally quote at least 3 directors who can like back me up on this, will say a lot of the reason that crossover performers are pushed out of the straight side is because a lot of those straight performers came from the gay side and completely revamped themselves, started a new name, became someone new, and they are pushing back at it. And if you have to ask me, I think it's because we're better performers, we're better looking, and they don't want us to come in and fuck their women. I'm not surprised. I'd be fucking shady too. You know what I mean? Right. And that's what I really think it comes down to. Because there's no logic between like the fucking testing anymore. There's no testing concern with it at all. So there's no sexual safety concern with it at all. Which means other than that, there only becomes a social issue with it.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, it's 2019. We're in 2019 right now.
It's 20 by 10.
Coining it. Hashtag that.
Yep.
You could have it for 2 more months.
Yeah. What's the payment like? Is it different?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get paid more for one or the other?
Yeah, you definitely get paid better on the gay side. But you can also build yourself up. I mean, we've built ourselves up on other like sides as well, and because of that we kind of get paid well everywhere.
Yeah.
But yes, stereotypically that would be the case. You would get paid less as a straight performer. I mean, some of those dudes are making fucking pennies, but you
talking
know,
like $300-$400 a scene.
But also, if you know how to negotiate,
straight.
When it really comes down to is what's the budget of the studio, and chances are the studio has the budget. So you know, at that point, it just comes down to really, can you negotiate for yourself? And most of those straight dudes can't.
Yeah, I mean, but that's why agents are a thing. They do all the negotiating for you, but it's just kind of like I would rather like be in control, because like I still get paid more than a lot of the straight performers.
So how did you get to that point? And like talk a little bit about the studio shoots versus the content you're creating yourself. Like, do you kind of have to do both these days to rise in the field?
Definitely. Well, rise in the field or rise with your financial gains from the work?
I guess both. Like, how does it affect both of those?
If you want to earn money, yes, you need to have third-party platforms pushing your product. Like, absolutely. You need to use your brand and your social media marketing for more than just the studios you're handing away basically fucking everything to. Yeah. And that's your fans trying to follow you, not the company that you work for. And
right, and you can reach out to them directly.
And having that option for your fan base is the right thing to do anyways. Like, a lot of them don't really give a shit about what you're doing on those sites. They just want to see what you're fucking in your life. You know what I mean?
Like, I do just fine, like, just with studio work. Like, I live more than happily, let's put it that way. And, like, stuff like OnlyFans is kind of just, like, extra money, you know, every month. So it's not something like you need to do, but it's just like some people are so fucking good at OnlyFans that it's just like literally they just only do studio work just to get their name out there a little bit more.
Oh yeah.
And do you think the studios look at like your social media and how many followers you have and make decisions on who to hire based on that?
Totally.
Because at the end of the day, when they make your scene and they start releasing it to their blogs, they release it on their social media sites and you're tagged in it. I mean, you retweeting it with having a certain outreach with that makes a difference. I mean, it's business. It sucks to think like, oh, the porn site has a business end, but it does. It's there's just a lot of fucking on top of it. You know?
So what's like the best thing about working in this industry, and what's the worst, or what's some best experiences versus not so great experiences?
When you start mixing in the award shows with the actual work, and it's like 8 days worth, because then it gets really hard to, or at least for me, it gets hard to like separate the partying from because you're literally there to party. Like, you are there paying for and hosting these grandiose parties to like have these models show up to, and for some people it's mandatory, for others it isn't. That's my hardest part, especially because everyone wants to shoot around those times because everyone's together. So you like get done with 3 days worth of fucking binge partying, and then they're like, okay, you got 6 scenes lined up, like Roger Dodger, like let's go. It's just like you don't get time off because you're in a different hotel in a different location. You never really feels like you punch out.
Yeah.
I think that point specifically I would almost have to agree with is just like taking a breather, just being able to, because like all of a sudden like you won't realize that you just did this, but then like you look at your schedule and you're like, fuck, I'm not even home this month. Like you're like, oh, like,
I'm literally not home this month.
I go to Atlanta and then go home the next morning. I go to San Diego, and then that night as I drive back home from San Diego, I then got to drive to Vegas and then fly back and do all this like weird like mashing up, and then you're just like stressing yourself out. And
it's like even people who travel for work, business, 3 weeks out of the month, there's still a set schedule to what they're doing. For ours, call times can be different times. Scene can last till different times. That can turn into going to dinner with your friends. It can turn into ordering shitty food into your hotel. You know what I mean? It can, but there's just never a set schedule.
How long does it take to shoot scenes?
anywhere from 2 hours to 16 hours.
Wow. Why does it take 16 hours?
Depends on the
fucking
production.
question. It's not supposed to.
Because that kind of merges over into like mainstream film at that point when it takes that long, because then it's just like you have like these big crews and like there's all this like setup and all these like little minute details that need to be matched.
And B-roll can last forever, like the actual acting piece of it. For some films, that is longer than the actual sex part.
And just to clarify, B-roll in porn is the acting part.
Or what's the normal way to say it?
B-roll is like when you see like cityscapes, like in mainstream film, like it's just like all of a sudden like a quick cut of like a cityscape or like someone just like like shit that it doesn't have anything to do with the story.
It's like reversed.
It is reversed because B-roll, that's their way of saying the nothingness that's going on.
Yeah.
But for ours, it's not really nothingness. It's
but it's not
the
focus, basically.
Not the. Oh, I see.
But yeah, anyway.
Some people want to know where that fucking pizza delivery guy's there.
Totally.
I usually do.
Do you shoot that separately from the sex?
Same day
Depends.
usually. There's a few companies that like will split it up into A-roll and B-roll days, but in my personal opinion, that's their way of saying, hey, we'd like to pay you less for more hours of footage. So I don't really like that, but more often than not, no, you film B-roll and the sex in the same day.
And that's
so you're
why I could
acting
take up
and
to
the sex.
16 hours.
Uh-huh. Do you get into like a different mindset when you're doing the B-roll versus the other stuff?
No.
It's kind of like you want to stay in the same, because if the story is taking that fucking long, then your character is kind of reliant in the sex scene.
Yeah, I can't see them as two separate things, because then to me, I've completed one task and I'm in this lull between my second task, and that's when I don't want to do anything.
So you're
in my head, I just think it's all one thing.
And you're in character the whole time. Do you feel that way, or do you ever feel like you get into yourself and the character fades, or do you try to stay in the role?
I don't think we have crazy wide character ranges. And actually, the shit we did with Lance in Vegas.
Oh.
I guess we could kind of play anything at that point.
Yeah, but that was one of those 2-hour shoots,
Yeah, that's
What
true.
was that role?
I was Spider-Man, and Dante was the evil
vegan demon.
Yeah, and you actually look kind of fucking good. And I saw that DVD cover. I was like, you like.
Well, thank you.
Something about that eyeliner. Lance knows what he's fucking doing.
His whole thing is just like super cheesy stuff, like
Campy shit, but it's really good, and it's got a huge market for it.
Like none of this makes sense. Like, what is this? But it's that sells.
It's cool and it's silly at the same time.
Yeah, but it's fun.
Is the more kink porn community separate from this, or is
Yeah.
there a lot of crossover? Or?
It's just crossover, but it's
I mean,
separate.
It's very
I'm
separate.
not familiar on like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're the kink expert out of us two.
I'm not the kink expert. I'm the.
Motherfucker, I filmed 2 kink scenes, and you filmed how many?
Yeah, well, I like whipping people, man. I like hitting people and stuff.
Sounds like a
Makes me
kink
feel
expert.
good. Well, I mean, one could argue someone that's incredibly submissive, Dante, would be more expertised. I don't fucking know. In kink, motherfucker.
That's fair. Fair.
But what was the question?
You answered it.
Oh, okay, cool.
But actually, that leads me to another question. Like dominant, submissive. Do you think that's like a separate spectrum than what your sexuality is, or is it related in some way?
100%. And that
Really?
thanks for saying that. I don't think that can be stressed enough in understanding like all of this and what we're talking about today is fuck yeah. Being submissive, being a bottom does not make you more or less gay. It's just what role you like to take. It's a different scale and they oscillate at the same time in two different spaces.
Yeah.
Like, they are two different things, and together they equal an algorithm that is whatever fucking label you want to put it on.
But being a bottom doesn't necessarily mean submissive. You could be total, like,
No,
dominant
that's what I mean.
bottom.
It doesn't correlate. You're right.
Oh, gotcha.
Not just
Sorry,
to,
I
like,
didn't see
being more gay, but being more submissive. You're right. My point is what's seen as the more submissive role doesn't at all correlate to your sexuality. People will always go back to the day old, like, if you're less masculine, if you're less of a man, like, that is what being gay is. Like, that is where that comes from. And I think that is just that was logical thinking when we were cavemen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we needed to provide in this angry masculine way. But now the people raking in the money are the tech dudes and like people who are traditionally not your athletic jocks, you know? Like it's switched. So that dynamic doesn't work anymore. And I think because of that, we're opening up to a different one.
Right.
But no, they're two completely different things. Dom, sub, always find the difference. If you sitting there and you're racking your brain about something and you're confused and it's in regards to sexuality, I guarantee you 90% of the time it's because you somewhere got mixed up in there submissive and dominant roles, which are about sexual pleasure, not about gender or identity and stuff like that, preference.
Right. It took me a while to be comfortable exploring this stuff and to realize where I was most comfortable, but
Yeah, me too. I'm a little newer to this shit too.
yeah, well, and I've found that I like to try all new things and I'm not very rigid, but like I enjoy the role of a sub top, which is something that like I wouldn't have even thought existed before I realized that these are different spectrums. And that like masculinity is not necessarily connected to your sexuality. That just because you like guys doesn't mean it's not masculine or that you can't behave in whatever way you want on the gender spectrum.
Yeah, I've seen some hella masculine dudes that you would not want to fuck with that are like gay, and it's just like has nothing to do with it.
What's the best part about working in this industry?
Telling people you work in this industry.
Really? How do people react?
Just, I don't know.
It's
kind of like exactly how you'd think they'd react.
It's always different.
Wow. That's true. One time I got this one bitch in Uber. She was like, oh, how long have you been doing that? Is this what you're going to do for the rest of your life? I was like, does this make you feel uncomfortable? Like, you did ask me. And she's like, no, just sad. I was like, pull the damn car over. I did. I made her pull over. I was like, thank you so much. Can we actually just end? I said it all nice. I didn't like yell at her or anything. Mainly because I was afraid I was going to get like fucking cursed by the, God or something. I was like, please just, the corner right here is fine. Like, because just that thought process, like to her, this was so pitiful and so sad. And, oh, did you really have to? Honey, I was running businesses before this. I'll be running businesses after this. This is a fun pit stop along the way. And I think for most successful porn stars, that is the case. Most people who are in here desperate for the paycheck don't last long.
Yeah.
What's the best part for you? And then I have a question about that.
I dig all of what he's saying. That's definitely a really nice part of it, just kind of seeing people's reactions. That's why I love just talking about it. I would say just in general for me, the kind of money that you are capable of making and the freedoms that you are able to have and the fun. There are very few people in this world that can be like, I love my job. And I am one of those fortunate people that can say that. And it's just,
Yeah, me too. I bitch about it a lot, but I do love it.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like the freedom you're capable of having. You make your own schedule. You make pretty good money. You have fun while you're working. Doing it is the best part.
Cool. And you mentioned a lot of porn performers, it's sort of a stop on the way. What are your career goals long-term and life goals? How do you see this fitting in?
So moving to LA, I never really wanted to go down the acting route, even though like I've always been told that. It always has seemed like a good fit. It kind of seems like a part of my life. But I've never really gone down it because I fucking hate conformity. I'm like, I don't want to be like everyone else out here. It was like, I'm an actor. I'm like, you're a fucking bartender. You know what I mean? So for that, I didn't want to. But then someone was like, well, you realize you could be like one of the first people to like still do porn and acting instead of like cutting it off and denouncing one in order to get into the other. And I was like, now this is a 1 in a million shot. I can go for it. So I think that's kind of the path I'm going down. I decided I'm going to make a documentary pretty soon here, and I have all the setup I need to do it and just kind of a day in the life. So I think I'm going to go down that route. But keep the porn in the process, because I don't want to say fuck you to porn, because I don't have any qualms with porn. I really like porn.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big issues is people jump to a different career and then they say, try to bury that in the corner and make it a bad thing. But it's not a bad thing. This gave a lot of people a leg up. The tax returns look the same,
It is so related and so similar to other content creation that is not about sex.
Exactly. And
It's
when
you
you
have
start
so
getting
many
good at
skills.
and there's more skills than just content related or film related. You also have to remember we're social media PR experts.
Right, that
I
too.
will put any good porn star who's a great social media up against any middle manager in PR. There is nobody. There are so many tools you gain from porn, and you become way more multifaceted than being a phenomenal fuck.
I'm kind of in sort of the same boat as Michael over here, is kind of wanting to go the acting route, but it's because I love to act. It's so much fun for me, but it's also like I don't want to put the time and effort into it because it's just one of those things that's like something you could chase all your life and get absolutely fucking nowhere with it. So it's just like if the opportunity comes to me, then yeah, I'll take it up on it. But currently where I see myself going is staying in the industry, taking the performer route as far as I can go, and then when I start to realize like, hey, maybe I should get out of it, then get out and then move on to production or move into production while I perform, which is actually a common thing. But staying within the industry one way or the other.
Yeah, you fucking love it here.
What's your favorite part about being bisexual, pansexual, fluid in your life?
More options.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Why would you take half of the pot of gold if you could have the whole fucking pot of gold?
Yep.
Okay. Summed it up there pretty well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Experience.
Good answer.
More things to experience in life.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any message for like straight identified guys who are questioning their sexuality, or bi people who may not be out yet? Like, do you have any message for them exploring this based on your experience?
Just, it's easier said than done. Just let yourself be who you are. Like, life becomes so much fucking easier when you just do that. Like, the things that you're worried about why you don't allow yourself to be who you are petty things most of the time, and they end up like you realize they don't matter at the end of the day.
Well, and usually that's the shit that's holding you back from getting to where you want to go in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, just, you got to make the step yourself. People think that what everyone else is going to think is the sum of who they are, but it isn't. They got to be happy with who they are. Like, that little bit of shit you get from a friend feels a whole lot different when you like don't believe in yourself. You know what I mean? Then that little haha bro joke turns into, whoa, that hurt my fucking feelings, because you didn't own it. You couldn't become a part of who you are,
Well, that's great. Thank you guys so much for being here on Two Bi Guys. Thank you for all the work you're doing in the industry to promote visibility and representation of fluid sexuality and gender. And it was great to meet you and talk to you.
Awesome. Likewise.
Yeah, thank you for having us on, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you.
Our music is by Ross Mincer and graphic design by Kaitlin Weinman. This podcast is edited by Moxie Peng and is also produced by Moxie Peng, Matt Loomis, Alex Boyd, and me, Rob Cohen. Thanks for listening to Two Bi Guys.